Hello, Hobbitses, and welcome back to another episode of Gollum Reads. And today we are reading Jack and the Beanstalk. Yes, and in this story there is a man, and he finds some magic beans, and a beanstalk sees grows. Yes, and he encounters, I think, a giant or something. Yes. Oh, and apparently this is the best book club ever series. How old is this book? We don't know. Oh, it's from 1978. What's 78, Precious? Anyway, let's get into the story, shall we? There once was a carefree lad named Jack who lived in a cottage by the sea with his poor widowed mother. All they had in the world was a cow whose milk they sold for money to buy their bread. One sorry morning the cow stopped giving milk, Precious, since there was scarcely any food in the cupboards. Jack's mother told him to go to market and try to sell the cow and hurry back with the money, said his mother. Oh, we'll have no supper tonight. Cheer up, mother, called Jack. I'll be home in no time. By and by the lad met a strange-looking man. Where are you off to, Jack? He asked. To market to sell a cow, Jack replied, wondering how the man can know his name. I happen to need a cow. Yes, said the man, and he showed Jack 5 strange-looking beansies. These are magic beansies, he said. You'll find none like them anywheres, but I'm willing to part with them for your cow there. He looks like Tom Bombadil. Anyway, Jack was dazzled by the sight of the magic beans, so he gave the man the cow, yes, in exchange for them. Then he went all the way home. Back so soon, said Jack's mother. How much did you get for the cow? Jack proudly told his mother how he had traded the cow for 5 magic beansies. Is it pooping? Magic beans! Shouted Jack's mother. She flew into a fury and threw them out the window. You go to bed hungry for being such a stupid lad, she cried. That night, Jack and his mother went to bed without any supper, but outside the window, something wondrous happened. The strange-looking beans were magic! Indeed! No sooner had they hit the ground than they began to sprout. By the time Jack awoke the next morning, a gigantic beanstalk had grown up. It seemed to reach the sky. Quick as a wink, Jack jumped out the window and began to climb up the beanstalk. Yes, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed. Yes. Until he reached the top of the stalk and found himself in the land above the clouds. In the middle of the clouds stood an enormous castle, and since there was nothing else in sight, Jack walked boldly up to the door. An enormous woman answered Jack's knock. Could you spare me a bite to eat, Precious? Begged Jack, for he was hungry as a hunter after his long climb. Jack looked so pitiful that the woman felt sorry for him. "I'll feed you, but you must be quick about it," she said. "My husband is a terrible ogre, and he eats up boys the likes of you." Gollum. As Jack went to the giant's house, the room began to tremble and shake with the sound of someone's footsteps. "That's my husband!" "Ah!" cried the woman. "Quick! Jump into the oven and hide until he falls asleep." The giant came storming in, and immediately he smelled Jack, who shivered with fear as the giant bellowed, "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "Nonsense, husband," said the giant's wife. "You only smell the meat I'm broiling." And she made him sit down to his dinner. Gollum. After eating an enormous meal, the giant took out his money bags and began to count his gold coins. He had not been counting long when he began to snore. Jack was dazzled by the sight of the gold. He crept out of the oven and up to the table and grabbed one of the money bags. Then he ran with it as fast as he could go. When he reached the beanstalk, down he slid to show his mother the marvelous treasure he had found. Jack's mother was overjoyed, and for many a week they lived like kings. But by and by the gold coins ran out, and Jack felt an urge to climb the beanstalksies again. Surely the giant had many more treasures hidden in his enormous castle. So later one night, Jack climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed. Yes, until he came to the top of the beanstalk again. This time the giant's wife said, "The last time I fed you, my husband missed one of his money bags." But Jack begged and pleaded so pitifully that she finally let him in. Suddenly the floor began to rumble and shake. Jack jumped onto the cupboard just as the giant stormed in. "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I smell the blood of an Englishman!" he roared. "Nonsense!" said the giant's wife, and she made him sit down. Gollum. After the giant had finished eating, he took out his little hen. "Hen, lay!" he roared, and then the hen laid a golden egg. "Hen, lay!" he roared again. Again, the hen laid an egg of pure gold. By the time the giant began to snore, the hen had laid a dozen eggs of gold. As soon as the giant fell asleep, Jack crept off the cupboard, climbed onto the table, grabbed the hen, and ran with her as fast as his legs could carry him. When he reached the beanstalk, down he slid to show his mother the marvelous treasure he had found. "Give it to me!" After that, whenever Jack and his mother were in need of monies, Jack told the little hen to lay. Then they sewed the golden eggs, yes. But by and by, Jack felt the urge to visit the giant's castle once again. This time, Jack didn't knock at the door. He sneaked into the giant's house and hid himself in the kettle. There he waited until the giant arrived. "Fee, fi, fo, fum!" roared the giant. But though he poked his nose in every corner, he couldn't find Jack. Yes! At last the giant sat down to his supper. When he was done, he took out his golden harp. "Harp, "Play!" he roared, and the harp began to play music as sweet as any Jack had ever heard. It was not long before the giant fell asleep. Then Jack climbed out of the kettle, crept up to the table, and grabbed the harp. At once, the harp began to cry out, "Master! Master! Ah!" The giant awoke with a great roar. Jack ran with the harp just as fast as his legs could carry him, but the giant was close behind him, bellowing, "Fee, fi, fo, fum! I see a little Englishman. Now he's alive, but he'll soon be dead, for I'll grind his bones to make my bread." Gollum! When Jack reached the beanstalk, he sat all the way down. The stalk began to tremble and sway, for the giant was trying to slide down after him. But Jack quickly grabbed the axe Precious and began to chop away. Down, down, down fell the beanstalk, throwing the terrible giant right into the sea, and that was the end of him. As for Jack and his mother, they lived on like kings, happily ever after. Gollum! We hope you enjoy this reading of Jack and the Giant Beanstalk. Yes, and if you did, don't forget to smash the like button and leave a comment down below. Yes, and if you want to see more of these videos, don't forget to subscribe. Do it! You know you want to, my love. Yes, do it! Until next time, Hobbitses. Gollum, Gollum.